Servus Leute, willkommen zurück zu Danganronpa. Trigger Happy Havoc. Wir machen hier weiter im Klassenprozess. Nein, das war... Die Taste war's nicht. Ich drücke erstmal alles falsch. Das war's, was ich wollte. Moment. Es könnte dauern.
The killer prevented it from getting wet.
So the reason the tarp was only dirty on one side is because the sprinkler got that side wet.
But the underside of the tarp, it was totally spotless, right?
It's because that side was protected from the water. Since it was facing down toward the body.
Ja.
Of course it did.
Ich weiß gerade nicht, was ich tun muss.
By covering the body with the tarp, the killer prevented it from getting wet.
So the reason the tarp was only dirty on one side is because the sprinkler got that side wet.
But the underside of the tarp, it was totally spotless, right?
It's because that side was protected from the water. Since it was facing down toward the body.
Da war's
Of
richtig.
course it didn't get dirty.
So würde ich das mal... Ah, das hätte ich lassen sollen.
Covering the body with the tarp,
Vielleicht muss ich dein
the
Text
killer
irgendwie
prevented it
verhindern.
from getting wet.
So the reason the tarp was only dirty on one side is because the sprinkler got that side wet.
But the underside of the tarp, it was totally
It's because that side was protected from the water.
Kann nur deins
Since it was
vernichten
facing
irgendwie.
down toward the... Of course it didn't get dirty.
Das Blut und der Körper waren noch nicht getrocknet.
By covering the body with the tarp, the killer prevented it from getting wet.
So the reason...
Nee, ich weiß gerade nicht, was ich jetzt zu tun habe. Bisher war der Prozess ziemlich einfach, aber jetzt wird er kompliziert.
By covering the body with the tarp, the killer prevented it from getting wet.
So the reason the tarp was only dirty on one side is because the sprinkler got that side wet.
But the underside of the tarp, it was totally spotless,
Ja, ich
right?
habe keine Ahnung, ich kann nur alles versuchen
That
jetzt.
side was protected from the water.
Ja, super.
Since it was facing down toward the body. Of course it didn't get dirty.
Ja.
By covering the body with the tarp, the killer prevented it from getting wet.
So the reason the tarp was only dirty on one side is because the sprinkler got that side wet.
But the underside of the tarp,
Eigentlich kann ich jetzt nur versuchen, weil ich habe keine Ahnung, was ich jetzt zu tun habe.
It's because that side was protected from the water. Since it was facing down toward the body. Of course it...
Ja. Versuch mal einfach alles, was ich habe. Bla bla bla. Werde ich verlieren.
By covering the body with the
Ja,
tarp,
das Fragment habe ich.
the killer prevented. So the reason the tarp is because the spring, but the underside, it was totally spotless.
Because that side was protected from the water. Since it was facing down toward the body.
Das wollte ich.
Of course it...
Ja, das war auch falsch, war klar. Bla 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 bla.
By covering the body with the tarp, the killer prevented it from getting
So.
wet. So the reason the tarp is because the spring, but the underside, it was
Das wird jetzt noch eine Zeit lang
That side
dauern.
was protected from... Since it was facing down toward the body. Of course it...
Ah,
no, it's wrong.
den letzten Lebenspunkt.
Actually, one side being clean is pretty strange if you think about it. Because the blood wasn't dry before the body got blown up, right? Yakuya said it himself. Not to touch it, or you might get some on you. If you put a tarp on a body in that state, it absolutely would have gotten blood on it.
Well, maybe the culprit washed it, so nobody would know they'd used it.
If they had, they would have washed both sides. Just washing the one side wouldn't hide anything.
Oh, yeah, true.
More than that, what if the very blood we saw on the body was meant as a kind of camouflage? What if, after the killer used the tarp to avoid the sprinklers, they then covered the body in blood that didn't belong to the victim?
You mean someone else's blood? Where would they get something like that?
I know! They could have grabbed some of the blood packs from the nurse's office. That's what Hifumi did, right? When he pretended to be dead?
No, that's not what happened this time. The killer got the blood from right there in the garden.
Die Pflanze? Blut vom Garten. Nein! Das Huhn! Scheiße! Ja, es fehlt ja ein Huhn. Verdammte Axt, hätte ich fast gesagt. Ja, armes Huhn.
Could have been chicken blood?
What? Chicken blood?
When I checked the chicken coop before the murder, there were 5 chickens. But after the murder, there were only 4.
So, you're saying someone killed a chicken and then covered the body with its blood? Man, that's messed up.
Killing a living thing just to do something like that is awful. They should have at least eaten it.
I wonder if the killer had to get the blood from the scene so they wouldn't be spotted walking around. Anyway, there's no denying that a chicken went missing, which provides a basis for my theory.
Perhaps, but even so, there's one thing that still doesn't make sense. You said the culprit used the tarp to avoid the water and then covered the body in blood, right? But if that's the case, then the blood should have soaked into the ground around the body. But that's not what we saw. Only the victim's clothing had blood on it. The ground was completely clean.
I have to agree, that certainly is strange. Maybe they didn't apply the blood at the scene. Maybe they covered the coat in blood beforehand.
They covered it beforehand?
When you discovered the body, was it wearing the coat like you normally would?
I think so. Wait, no. The head was through the neck hole, but the arms weren't in the sleeves.
Then that settles it.
Sorry, I'm having a tough time keeping up. What settles what?
Here's what happened. The murder took place before the sprinklers went off, but the body didn't get wet because the killer covered it with the tarp. Then, later, at the same time the killer was gathering up the tarp, they pulled the coat over the body, the coat they'd already covered in blood. This series of cover-ups was meant to disguise the actual time the murder occurred. They wanted us to think the murder happened sometime after the sprinklers had gone off, at 7:30.
If that's actually what took place, it certainly becomes possible that the murder happened earlier.
But to pull all that off, wouldn't they have had to go back to the garden after the sprinklers turned off?
That actually wouldn't have been all that difficult. Huh? They already had the coat ready, so they just had to grab the tarp and pull the coat over the body. They'd be done in no time.
Maybe, but still.
Hina, after you met up with Makoto in the dining hall, did you two stay together from that point on?
Oh no. I headed off to the gym, and Makoto didn't show up till later.
Then he had plenty of time to spare, wouldn't you say?
That's not...
Don't bother saying it's not possible.
I must admit, Kyoko's reasoning is sound. Makoto's alibi is inadequate.
Kyoko macht mich fertig. Was zum Henker ist hier los? Ja, und wieder fallen die Verdächtigungen zurück auf mich. Aber warum? Warum versucht Kyoko mich zu fangen oder so? Ich verstehe es nicht. Ja.
Well then, it looks like we're back to square one. Makoto's alibi is no good, so once again, our suspects are him and Kyoko.
For serious, man? Which one of them did it? Hey, why don't we let luck decide? Let's flip a coin. 50-50 odds.
Oh!
See? Pretty good idea, right?
No, not that. I just remembered something super serious.
Well, don't just stand there. Out with it.
You know that knife we found all black and burnt?
One we found stuck in the body before it exploded, right? According to the Monokuma file, the knife went all the way through, from front to back. So, what about it?
I'm pretty sure I'd seen that knife somewhere before. That's what I thought when I first saw it. I just remembered.
It's the knife we gave to Makoto?
You don't seem surprised. You must have noticed earlier.
Yeah,
Then why did you hide that fact?
it's not that I hid it. It's just...
Ich konnte mir nicht sicher sein, dass das, was letzte Nacht passiert ist. Ich dachte, vielleicht habe ich sie wirklich umgebracht.
Suspicious! Very suspicious indeed. The knife we found stuck in the body came from Makoto. Now I'm totally convinced he did it. 12,000% convinced.
Da jetzt alle gegen mich sind, sollte ich die Sache wohl klarstellen. Ich muss beweisen, dass ich nicht der Mörder bin. Ich bin nicht der Killer. Dass ich niemanden ermordet habe, so. Die Frage ist nur, was muss ich jetzt nehmen? Okay, erstmal Durchgang wieder.
It's the same one we gave to Makoto.
It really is, isn't it? I was afraid of that.
If he did have that knife before, then... that seals it! Makoto did it!
Just because I had the knife once? That automatically makes me the killer?
Well, getting stabbed is what killed her, right? So there's no question. You took that knife of yours and killed her with it.
What a horrible man you are, Makoto.
Okay, jetzt bin ich das mal durchgegangen. Ja, der Mantel wurde auf den Körper gelegt, nachdem die Plane abgenommen wurde. Okay. Das bedeutet, wenn das Messer durch den Mantel in die Brust, durch den Mantel in den Körper. Ja, was?
The knife we found lodged in the dead body.
It's the same one we gave to Makoto.
It really is, isn't it?
Ja, sie haben es
I
mir
was afraid of
gegeben.
that.
If he did have that knife before, then... that seals it! Makoto did it!
Just because I had the knife once, that automatically makes...
Well,
So,
No, that's wrong! Wait, hold on. The stab wound isn't what killed Mukuro. That should be clear from the description of the cover-up we just heard.
lies! We never talked about what killed her!
No, don't you remember? The killer covered the dead body with the tarp, and then put the bloody coat on it. In other words, the victim never wore that blood-stained coat until after they were dead.
Okay, fine. So what?
So, when we discovered the body, the knife had been thrust through the coat along with the body. Meaning, if she wasn't stabbed until the coat was put on, and she was already dead at that point, obviously the stab wound isn't what killed her.
Maybe you stabbed her twice. Once to kill her and once to cover it up.
das Opfer wurde zweimal am selben Punkt erstochen? Nein. Es gibt keine Möglichkeit, das zu beweisen. Die exakte Kondition des Körpers. Und das da? Ja. Nee.
Shoot!
Ah, verdammt, ich hab's verbockt. Was da? Ja, toll. Lalala. Ja. Ja, das da. Ich weiß es gerade nicht. Ich werde jetzt wahrscheinlich hier wieder sterben. Aber es ist mir egal. Versuchen wir es damit.
I got it! The Monokuma file clearly states that there was only one stab wound.
Oh yeah, it sure did. Totally forgot about that.
Then the knife...
Was just another piece of camouflage set up by the true killer. They probably stabbed her to draw attention away from what actually killed her. Exploding the body afterward was probably meant to do the same thing. The explosion severely damaged the body, making it impossible to know what really killed her. It was all the killer's attempt to destroy all evidence of their crime.
So they wanted us to notice the stab wound and then detonated the body afterward. They meant for us to latch onto the knife as the cause of death, then destroy any evidence proving otherwise.
Oh, hey, I have a question. It kind of goes back to the beginning, but what's the deal with that explosion anyway? Why'd the body just blow up all of a sudden like that?
If you bothered to put that lump of gray matter between your ears to use, you'd know the answer.
Well, if you're so smart, just tell me.
I'll tell you. I bet some unknown quantum particle caused an atomic-level spontaneous combustion!
I might be dumb, but even I'm not dumb enough to believe that.
Go ahead, Makoto. Tell her or we won't make any headway on this.
Explosion. Dieses Fragment, kann es sein, dass das die Bombe war? Was ist das?
I got it! After the explosion, we found a tiny fragment of something on the ground near the body, right? That fragment reveals the cause of the explosion.
Huh? You know, I feel like I've seen something like it somewhere before.
That's only natural, because of course, we saw the same thing when we dismantled Monokuma. It's part of a bomb.
Oh! Then the explosion was because of the Monokuma bomb.
Anyway, the culprit's motive is becoming more and more obvious by the minute. They wanted the knife wound to look like the fatal injury so that we'd suspect Makoto. And the only one who would benefit from that is the only other possible suspect. You, Kyoko.
Hold on a second, Byakuya.
What's the problem?
Well, I just feel like we need to think this through. We still don't know what actually killed the victim.
That's true. It's definitely bugging me. What really killed her?
Fine. I have no problem with that. Let us continue the debate. It won't change the facts of the case regardless.
Ja, was hat sie umgebracht? Vielleicht hat die Explosion sie ja umgebracht. Also die Monokuma-Bombe, davon rede ich jetzt.
Then, shall we continue the debate? The victim's fatal injury has yet to be determined, correct?
The explosion didn't kill her for sure. I guess.
Well, yeah. She was already totally dead when that happened.
And it wasn't me because of the knife, right?
Yeah.
There's only one other thing.
Oh yeah. According to the Monokuma file, that's gotta be it. There was evidence that showed she was hit on the back of her head.
And more than that,
Ja, mit dem Eisenrohr oder so, oder?
the victim had suffered countless wounds across her entire body.
Hier gibt es ziemlich viel, was ich falsch machen kann. Das Messer war ein Backup. Die anderen Wunden alle an dem Körper waren nicht frisch. Ach so, das
Then shall we
heißt
continue the debate?
The victim's
der
fatal
Kopfschlag, oder?
Explosion didn't kill her. Well, yeah. And it wasn't me, but Danny, there's only one other thing.
Oh yeah. According to the Monokuma file, that's gotta be it.
Ja. Ist doch der Kopfschlag,
Then
oder
shall
der
we
nicht?
continue the debate?
Die Teilröhre. Moment, die Pfeile. Vielleicht.
The victim's fatal injury has yet to be determined, correct?
The explosion
Ja,
didn't kill
super.
her for sure. Yes.
Dann werde ich müde.
Well, yeah.
Ich habe schon viele Folgen Danganronpa heute aufgenommen.
And it wasn't me, but
Naja. Was? Naja, es ist mir gerade egal, weil ich nur mehr einen Lebenspunkt habe. Ich glaube, ich knall jetzt einfach alles ab. Das ist, glaube ich, das Intelligenteste. Weil manchmal verstehe ich diese Texte nicht so wirklich. Oder besser gesagt, ich verstehe es zwar schon, aber irgendwie ergeben sich hier mir so die Texte nicht so wirklich
I
sinnmäßig.
refuse to give up yet.
Deswegen werde ich jetzt das Monokuma-Pfeil auf alles feuern, was ich sehe. Ich werde zwar noch ein paar Mal sterben, aber egal.
Then shall we continue the debate?
The victim's
Aber das war klar, macht aber nichts.
Then shall we continue? The victim's fatal. The explosion didn't.
Ja, das war auch falsch, macht aber nichts. Wahrscheinlich muss ich das Monokuma-Pfeil gar nicht abfeuern.
Then shall we continue? The victim's
Ja,
fatal.
das habe ich, das habe ich.
Well, yeah. She was. And it wasn't me.
Und das habe ich auch.
Oh yeah. That's gotta be it.
Das habe ich auch.
And more than that, the victim had
Okay, das Monokuma-Pfeil muss ich nicht abfeuern. Jetzt weiß ich es garantiert. Und jetzt habe ich auf alles abgefeuert, was ich hatte.
Then shall we continue the debate? The victim's fatal injury has yet to be determined, correct?
Okay,
The
das nicht.
explosion didn't kill her for sure.
Das wollte ich nicht.
Well, yeah. She was already
Vielleicht muss ich das Knife hernehmen.
And it wasn't. Right?
So, Knife.
Danny, there's only one other thing.
Oh yeah. According to the Monokuma file, that's gotta be.
Das verstehe ich gerade nicht.
Then shall we continue?
Continue the debate. The victim's
Fatal injury has yet to be determined.
The explosion didn't kill her for sure.
Well, yeah.
She was already told.
And it wasn't me, Danny. There's only one other.
Oh yeah. According to the Monokuma file, that's gotta
Vielleicht das da.
evidence that
Hit on the
was
back.
hit on the back of her head.
And more than that, the victim had suffered countless wounds across her entire body.
Ja, jetzt habe ich wieder nicht gelesen.
Debate. The victim's fatal.
The explosion didn't kill her for sure.
Well,
Yeah.
And it wasn't me, Danny.
Oh yeah. That's gotta be it.
Bin ich dumm? Das war Versehen. Ja. Das war ein doofes Versehen. Bla bla bla. Diese Prozesse sind zwar cool, aber manchmal verstehe ich sie nicht so wirklich. Ja.
I refuse to give up yet.
Okay, das Monokuma-Fall ist umsonst.
Then, shall we continue the debate? The victim's yet to be determined, correct?
The explosion didn't kill her for sure. I guess.
Well, yeah. She was already totally dead when that happened.
And it wasn't you because of the knife, right? And then there's only one other thing.
Oh, yeah. According to the
muss ich dich.
Monokuma file, that's gotta...
Ich verstehe nicht, was ich hier machen muss, ganz im Ernst.
Then, shall we continue the debate?
The victim's
Okay, nochmal einen Durchgang, um zu gucken, was Makoto am Ende sagt.
And it wasn't you. And then there's a...
Und ja, das Fadenkreuz hier bewegt sich automatisch. So, da. Weil die anderen Wunden sind nicht frisch. Was bleibt übrig? Ja,
Then, shall we
ein
continue
Schlag auf
the
den
debate?
Kopf, ich weiß.
The victim's fatal. The explosion didn't kill... Well, yeah. She was... And it wasn't you.
Moment.
And then there's only...
Vielleicht.
According to the Monokuma file, that's gotta
So, nehmen wir das und setzen es bei Byakuya ein, gleich am Anfang.
Then, shall we continue the debate? The victim's
So,
No, it's wrong. Mukuro died because of the blow to the back of the head she suffered.
What about the wounds all over the rest of her body? They didn't have anything to do with it?
The Monokuma file makes it clear that those weren't fresh wounds.
Oh yeah, good point. If they were old, I guess they don't really matter.
okay. Then we're safe in assuming the blow to the back of her head is what killed her.
But then, what was the murder weapon? The Monokuma file says she was hit with a blunt object, about as thick as a metal pipe.
Oh, I bet it was the pickaxe!
How is that even possible? If you hit someone with that, it'd cave their skull in completely.
Well, maybe they held it the other way and hit her with the handle.
No way! The balance would be all off. You wouldn't be able to swing it with any kind of power. I wouldn't mind testing it on you if you want.
No thanks. I bet you just hit me with the metal end and call it an accident.
I'd love to scoop out that nasty brain of yours, throw it on the ground and spit on it.
I feel the same way. Looks like we're on the same page this time.
Seriously?
We want to figure out what killed her, right? It just so happens we already know.
We already know? I knew we could count on you, Master.
So what was it?
Go ahead and tell them, Makoto. Surely you've deduced the real murder weapon?
Die Pfeile, nehme ich an.
I got it! Mukuro was hit in the back of the head with something. And that's what killed her. And that something was the titanium arrow we found in the locker in the dojo.
Arrow. That's what the culprit attacked Mukuro with?
Indeed. There's no doubt about it.
Are you sure? That sounds... kind of weird.
Hey! How dare you backtalk, Master? You have no right!
I'm not backtalking anything. I'm just saying what I think.
Ich verurteile Hina nicht für das Zurückreden. Da gibt es nämlich noch ein weiteres Ding, was als Waffe in Frage kommen würde. Nee, was noch an dieser Waffe wäre. Noch ein Geheimnis. Na, ich habe befürchtet, dass sie sich wieder drehen. Okay, Titaniumpfeile. Ah, das Ducktape wahrscheinlich. Genau. Aber zuerst...
The titanium arrow.
Bla 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 bla. Ja, was du sagst, ist mir scheißegal. Ich werde hier jetzt einen Schnitt wieder machen. Das war Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc. Ich hoffe, es hat euch gefallen und wir sehen uns das nächste Mal wieder. Pfiat euch.